Good morning, everybody. Mr. Tinnel. Today is Tuesday, April 24th, and today we're going over the Roaring Twenties. Starting out with good things, we have it was beautiful weather. Yesterday was great. I actually got out of the house. I determined that going to Home Depot and getting stuff for my garden was essential because it was going to keep me sane. So I went out and bought some garden soil, and I got some mulch for the front yard, and then I got some seeds and some Miracle-Gro. So all of these things were determined essential by me. So I hope you guys are doing well. And I was wearing a face mask, I will say that. I have been doing a good job when I've been going to the grocery store wearing my face mask. So it is a weird time, that is for sure. All right. Hopefully you guys have good things. I will say about the incentives this week, I have a few problems. One, I'm out of stamps. I have a few postcards that I need to send out right now. I can't send out because I don't have any stamps. I drove by the post office yesterday and there was like a line 20 people deep. So I am not getting stamps yet. I'm not sure how I'm going to get some, but I need to get some. Maybe I'll just go early. And then the other thing, the thing I've been hinting at, is still on back order from Amazon. It should get here by Friday, but that has been deemed non-essential. So the things shipping from Amazon have been coming very, very slowly, unless it's like food and supplies. So keep an ear open. If I get some stamps, I might open up the postcards thing again, but we're not doing that right now. I'm on top of everything, but I still need to catch up. So keep listening. I'm really looking forward to this thing I get from Amazon. I know I've been selling it really hard, but it is really cool. All right, so let's jump into things. Today we are looking at the Roaring Twenties. So the time period after World War II or World War I is considered the Roaring Twenties. The 1920s in America was a very interesting decade, and it showed our resiliency in coming back from war, and it also showed the capability of intense growth in the United States. And we see that. We see intense growth. So we'll talk about why that is and the interesting things that happened during this time period. And before I get into that, thank you if you've turned in your World War I web quest from Friday. If you haven't, go in there, finish it. Most of you have done it, but I'm still missing quite a bit. So please go in there and finish that up, and I'll start posting those grades and comments on it soon. All right, so let's jump over to the presentation. This is your web quest. So there is a guided notes sheet with this. Again, I would probably read through this first and then hop back over and start this presentation. You can read through the presentation on your own, or you can watch this video with me. So here we have the Roaring Twenties. Lots of things are going on. So what started the Roaring Twenties? The Roaring Twenties started with some crazy stuff that happened at the end of 1919. So 1918, we see the end of World War I. So the world had just been through some crazy stuff. 17 million people were killed in World War I across the world. Now, a very small percentage of that were Americans, but it had a massive impact on the entire world. But then we see numbers vary, but between 20 and 50 million people dying from a flu epidemic that pops up. So the Spanish flu was a flu that was created, not created, that started up in 1918 at the end of World War I. And this is a very fascinating thing because we see a flu spreads, and it doesn't just spread by the disease itself. The disease does not just fly around the earth and spread. The disease spreads from people. And interestingly, this flu is called two things: the Spanish flu. They saw the blue flu in that reading that you said, or the flu of 1918. So the flu starts actually in an army base in Kansas. There's some debate on this, but most researchers have determined that this massive flu, the Spanish flu, started in Kansas in the middle of the United States. How it actually started there is also up for debate. I've heard several theories on what it actually came from, but most people agree it started in Kansas. So the question you may ask yourself is, well, if it started in Kansas, why is it called the Spanish flu? And you'll frequently hear that. Many people on the news, and I believe the president has referenced it, most people call it the Spanish flu. It's called the Spanish flu because once this flu started spreading, there was only a few countries that were actually acknowledging the horrors that it was doing. Spain was one of them. Spain was the first country to openly show their numbers and show how many people were being affected by this flu. So because Spain was so open in showing their numbers, they're determined to have been the center of this flu epidemic. Regardless, this was massive. The effect that this had on the world it's very interesting to see the corollaries that are drawn between this and the coronavirus. Watch this link. It's very short. It's like 2 minutes long, but it does some great explanations of what the flu is and what the Spanish flu was. And there's some eerie predictions that this video was made in 2013. There's some eerie predictions in that video that really tie closely to what we are seeing today. But this gives you an appreciation, that flus can get serious. Flus can be bad if they are not handled correctly. And that's, the Spanish flu is an example of that. Also, at the end of World War I, we see this new generation of Americans considered the lost generation. So the lost generation were veterans and youth who were disoriented, wandering, directionless. They had just seen millions of people killed in war, millions of people killed from disease, and they're kind of thinking, what's the point of everything? What's the point of life? And you see these people who are just kind of floating through life, not really sure what to do. That is a huge problem in this country. This impacts our economy, society, and politics. Think if you had a whole generation of youth that didn't really, have motivation to work because, what's the point? They didn't have motivation to, go out and participate in the economy because, what's the point? But the bright side of this is we see a lot of art created. And we see that, I'll actually jump to these guys first. We see that through a lot of writers. F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. Ernest Hemingway, one of my favorite books of all time, The Old Man and the Sea, was created by him. Both veterans of World War I. They saw the craziness that happened throughout the world, and they were a part of this lost generation. Not really sure what to do, not really sure where to go, so they kind of focused on themselves. But going back to these charts, these are very ironic also. These are advertisements and kind of PSAs from the Spanish flu. Prevent disease, Careless spitting, coughing, sneezing spread influenza and tuberculosis. Again, cough into your elbow, sneeze into your elbow. That's basically what this is saying. And then use the handkerchief and do your bit to protect me. You see the public here. Colds, influenza, pneumonia, and tuberculosis are spread this way. Use your handkerchief to protect me. What are we seeing today? Use your face mask to protect me. The corollaries, the similarities between the Spanish flu and this current flu are very, very similar. Here we see death rates from this Spanish flu at the end of October 1918 to December. Massive spikes. We see it all starting to bump up. That's the Spanish flu was devastating. It was a very, very devastating pandemic. Additionally, in 1920, beginning in the 1920s, we see the economy booming. People are making loads of money from the stock market. People are spending and investing with no caution. The stock market was not seen as a long-term investment. The stock market was seen as a get-rich-quick scheme. Get as much money as you can and then invest it to try to make as much money as you can. Now, let's say you don't have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money, but people are saying, oh, you got to buy, you make some quick money. So if you don't have a lot of money, what do you do to get money? You ask for a loan. Well, the problem is if that loaned money, if you lose that in the stock market, now you have nothing to pay back that loan because you lost that money in the stock market. Dogs, stop. I'm sorry. You can't invest with loaned money. And it's actually, because of this, it's illegal today because millions of people across the country invest with loan money they don't actually have. So when that money disappears and the stock market crashes, basically, we'll talk a little bit more about it on Thursday, explaining that a little bit more. But you cannot buy stocks with loaned money. That's illegal. You cannot do that today. So this massive growth, this get-rich-quick scheme of the stock market leads to the crash of 1929. There is a short film here. We'll talk more about this on Thursday. If you want to watch this, you can. It's not required reading, though. You see the stock market in the 1920s. See the massive growth. See the 10-year span. It raises 5 times, 500%. The stock market, lay down. The stock market increases 500%. That's astounding. But then it also crashes 500% in a very short period, in a 4-year period. We also see consumerism in the 1920s. This is the first time in American history where we're seeing buy stuff. You need to, everybody needs to buy the new sodas. Everybody needs to smoke this brand of cigarettes. And it's always funny to see the physicians, doctors recommending cigarettes. But buy. If you don't have money, we'll give you credit. Buy now, pay later. That is something that is created during this time period. The idea of a credit card. And credit cards are not bad, but you have to have the money to pay them off. The Americans don't realize this during this time period. People are buying things and not having the money to pay it off. We see a bunch of different major events happen in society. In the late 1800s, or I apologize, in the late, I think it was 1920, don't quote me on that, I'll have to look that up to confirm. The 18th Amendment is created. The 18th Amendment makes alcohol illegal. This starts prohibition, prohibiting the sale of alcohol. So alcohol in the 1920s was illegal. There was a point in America where alcohol was illegal. So this led to the creation of bootleggers, speakeasies, and moonshine, people making alcohol on their own. And because people were making alcohol on their own, organized crime skyrocketed. Think about this as basically drug dealing. Alcohol was an illegal drug that needed to make it around the country. Organized crime moved that around the country. The biggest problem with prohibition was that this sale, alcohol sales did not stop. It just went underground. And when it goes underground, what is the government not getting? If this is all secret and you're not, working through regular means, what is the government not getting with this alcohol sales? Taxes. So the government basically created a problem where people are still using this this drug, and now they're doing it underground, creating organized crime, and the government's not getting taxes from it, which we'll end up seeing that the beginning of the Great Depression, we realize, oh, hey, the government needs taxes. Maybe we should repeal the 21st Amendment, make alcohol legal again, and then make taxes off of that. So I always give you ways to remember the 18th, always give you ways to remember the amendments. The 18th Amendment, you can think about the 18th Amendment as what age did you used to have to be to buy alcohol? So the age for buying alcohol used to be 18. You used to be 18 years old to buy alcohol. That changed in the late 70s, I believe. But what age do you have to be today to buy alcohol? And that's 21. So 18 used to be 18, but that's gone. The 18th Amendment used to make alcohol illegal, but that's gone. The 21st Amendment, you have to be 21 to buy alcohol, and the 21st Amendment says that alcohol was legal again. And those are just both coincidental. Those don't have anything to do with the actual ages. It's just a way to remember it. The 19th Amendment. Many of you wrote about the feminists from the research paper that we did. Sorry, I'm blanking on the research papers. The research papers, we saw the women's rights movement being pushed. A lot of women, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, jumping forward and really trying to get women the right to vote. So the 19th Amendment finally gives women the right to vote. We start seeing women become more liberated. Women more was being asked of women from World War I, and we start seeing women have more freedom, more independence, new dresses, new attitudes. You'll see some pictures of this in a minute describing that. Lastly on this, we see the Great Migration. The KKK reemerges in the South, and because of the violence in the South and because of opportunities in the North, African Americans move north. African Americans start moving north in huge numbers to find success in their lives. Here we see images of Prohibition. I'll let you analyze those a little bit more. We see the women of the 1920s. This is kind of the flapper idea of what you would see. Then we see the reemergence of the KKK. This map shows the Great Migration, massive movement of people from the south to the north. You see some of the restrictions that were put in the south that you know really causing this Great Migration to happen. So lastly, we see politics. You might be saying to yourself, well, like with the stock market thing, how could the stock market, break an economy? Wouldn't the government step in to fix that? No, the government did not step in to fix it. The presidents of the 1920s, Warren G. Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover, all were hands-off, laissez-faire economics. Keep your hands off the economy. These are good 60-second briefs on each of these presidents. You need to watch Herbert Hoover's, though, because Herbert Hoover is one of the more complicated presidents in American history. A good person at the core. However, he caused the Great Depression. His inaction during the Great Depression causes the Great Depression to happen. He could have come in and did more to stop it. However, he didn't. And this gets into a really big argument of should the federal government, the national government, step in to fix individual problems? Some people say no. Some people say no, individuals should fix it themselves. Some people say no, states should come in to fix it themselves. Think about where we are now. If the national government said, oh, no, you guys need to handle this yourself. You need to fix this problem yourself. Would our problems get solved? Is a stimulus check from the government enough to help protect Americans from, coming into even more massive unemployment? Are people going to start losing their homes? This is what happened during the Great Depression because the federal government did not step in. And we will talk more about that on Thursday, what the government didn't do. All right. So that's all we have for the day. Make sure you go through and complete the guided notes with it. If you haven't done the World War I web quest, make sure you do that. And that is all for the day. I will see you guys on Thursday. Thank you very much. Bye.